All right, today we are talking about the most interesting movie that will be a part of the DCU's first chapter, Gods and Monsters. That movie is Swamp Thing.
Swamp Thing. You are amazing.
Directed by James Mangold, this movie, I don't see how it could not be good. You look at what he did with Logan, and you just look at what he's got to work with here with Swamp Thing and this really tragic kind of story. I guess it depends on which version that he decides to tell. It has the potential to be really great. So I've got all the facts. I've got my thoughts. I've got some speculation.
Now let's wade into the swamp.
The first thing to know is that while this film is connected to the DCU, unlike the Clayface movie, Gunn has emphasized that even in the DCU, every project, including this one, is going to stand on its own. And Mangold has said that he's not here to build some sprawling universe or to tell some story that's designed to last for movie after movie. But that's not how he thinks about it. He wants to create a standalone origin story, a simple gothic horror story, and of course, as is his specialty, something very character driven. Now, that doesn't mean that there's no chance that he wouldn't come back for a sequel. I think the point he's making is just that his focus is on making a great movie. He doesn't care about setting up future team-ups or crossover events. He just wants to make a great movie for us. And that's exactly what I want him to do. When a universe works and there's like a nice big shared universe, that can be kind of fun. But for me, I'm watching these movies 2 hours at a time. You know, I'm not going and watching this whole big universe all at one time somehow. That's impossible. Does that even make sense? I don't know what I'm talking about. I guess what I'm trying to say is I want each individual movie to be good. And if they somehow fit together, that's cool. But honestly, it's more cool in the way that a bunch of connecting covers for comic books are cool. I'm only mildly interested in having these things all connect together. It's neat. It's like, oh wow, look, these three covers, you put them together and it's a bigger cover. But if any one of the covers sucks, well, that sucks. And I'll only get the ones that are good, even if the one that's bad is right in the middle and it ruins the whole effect. What I'm saying is I like that he's doing it this way. I like that that's how he thinks. But I also believe that if this does well, he'll come back. You look at the Wolverine. He directed that in 2013. It did well. He came back and he wrote and directed Logan, which was even better. And I think we're all going to be rooting for him to come back. He's just the filmmaker you want for a movie like this. I like an elevated superhero movie, where I can kind of feel like, yeah, it's a superhero movie, but I'm also kind of sophisticated, for seeing this. This isn't just like a cartoon. So this is the guy you want if you want a movie that's not just about punching stuff. And you just look at Logan. It turned his Wolverine story into this gritty, post-apocalyptic action drama. It was very, very deep. The way that you all these characters that you've known before, but he puts them in this very unheroic situation, like a Professor X is just like a shell of who he used to be. And there's all this buried trauma and things that you don't even really find out everything, at least not explicitly. It's kind of like a Hemingway talked about, you write kind of like an iceberg, you tell them this much, this tip of the iceberg, you give them that. But then there has to be a bunch under the surface. And that's the kind of thing that Mangold does. And I'm realizing I don't really know how you pronounce his name. I hope it's Mangold. Mangold. Maybe that's what I'm doing to his last name. I'm mangling it. But one other thing about this director, if you don't mind digging through the crates, check out Copland. It is not a superhero movie, but it is a great movie. Any one of the characters could have been the focus of a whole movie just on their own. And it'll show you what Mangold can do. He's described this movie, it's going to be a simple, clean, gothic horror story. Not sure exactly what the simple, clean part means. I guess that's the point of just saying that he doesn't want it to be having all these okay, we got to make it have all these toys that can be connected. And don't forget to set up a bunch of sequels. Oh, and we'll need an after credits scene with John Constantine. But we're going to have the swamp, of course. That'll be a nice haunting backdrop. We'll have Alec Holland's tragic transformation. That'll be the emotional core. And then he said that he's going to kind of focus on the mysterious side of who or what cause this change. And Mangold seems like Mangold. I think it's probably Mangold. But I don't know why I keep wanting to. Mangold just seems kind of like a weird name. And so then I guess I'm trying to say Mangold. Anyway, he seems like the ideal director to bring this thing to life. He said he's taking inspiration from Frankenstein and RoboCop. I love that. He describes Swamp Thing as a tragic, monstrous figure, saying it's about a man who wakes up and discovers he's become something monstrous and has to figure out how it happened. So there's that mystery. And the RoboCop reference makes perfect sense to me. I actually was thinking Swamp Thing is kind of like a botanical RoboCop, isn't he? And I Googled it because I knew if I thought of it, then probably a million other people had thought of it. And it turns out even Mangold had. Mangold. Crap. RoboCop and Swamp Thing both really tugged at my heartstrings when I was a kid because something about that idea, I think I was kind of like a weird kid. I remember when I was in 5th grade and I was feeling a little bit sad because my mom was out of town and my dad was in my room while I was falling asleep because I was having trouble falling asleep. And I was just like,
Dad, how do I know that you exist? Like, I know that I'm real, but
I don't remember how I was saying to you in a little 5th grade way. And now I'm looking back and I'm like, wow, what? And why was I thinking about that? So you can see, strange little kid like that. And you tell them somebody, they're a human, but then somehow their identity persists in this other body. With RoboCop, it was particularly sad because, he had his family and then he's looking and seeing his family and feeling like he doesn't know if they're his family really or what the deal is. And it was, it's sad. I think that's really what gets to me is when they've got somebody who somehow this fact that they've been turned into something else is now keeping them away from the people that they love. And actually, now that I think about it, that's a perfect sort of isolated kind of feeling to bring to a gothic horror. What I'm most interested to find out is who is Swamp Thing in this movie. The version I know, it was Alec Holland was Swamp Thing. It was a man turned into a plant-based life form. So that one, it's like a human story. It's about, your identity and who are you if you change in all these ways. But Alan Moore's saga of the Swamp Thing was really a big redefinition of the character. All of a sudden, we find out Swamp Thing isn't Alec Holland at all. He's some plant elemental and he's just got Alec's memories. And he's connected to some weird mystical force called the Green. I loved those comics. I haven't read much of his recent stuff, but V for Vendetta, The Watchmen, I loved all the old Alan Moore stuff. But I feel like that distances the character from his human roots in a way that makes it much less emotionally powerful. My worry is that Saga of the Swamp Thing was included in the DCU's Gods and Monsters reading list, saying that, these are the ones you should read to get the kind of the vibe for what's coming. And I don't know if that was just something somebody threw together over there to be like, hey, we need some marketing collateral. Why don't you pick some random comics? If it wasn't that, then it suggests that broader mythology of Swamp Thing, him being an avatar of the Green, is going to play a bigger role in this universe. I hope that that's not the case. A man trying to hold on to his humanity is much more relatable and compelling to me than a talking vegetable. But if that is the case, that, maybe that's somewhere they're going to go eventually, I think that would be something that would come later. And as for this standalone movie, I don't think it's going to be an issue because Mangold tells these very character-driven stories, and I just don't see him wanting to focus on a character that's just, a big clump of vegetables and plant matter. So that's everything we know about James Mangold's Swamp Thing. Do you want Swamp Thing to be Alec Holland, or would you rather Swamp Thing be a sweet potato with Alec Holland's memories? Let me know, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more updates on the DCU and DC Comics.